Donald Trump keeps justifying the killing of more than 80 men on boats in the Caribbean, including 2 who were shipwrecked, as a way to save Americans from the deadly scourge of drugs. But then just this week, amidst this whole scandal, he pardoned a man who helped traffic more than 500 tons of cocaine into the U.S. Last year, the ex-president of Honduras, Juan Orlando Hernandez, was convicted here in the U.S. for basically running his country like a narco state.
The jury returned its verdict after a 2-week trial, convicting Hernandez of taking bribes from El Chapo's, that's the Mexican drug lord Sinaloa cartel, and others while he served as the president of Honduras from 2014 to 2022.
That bribe from El Chapo, by the way, was worth $1 million. Hernandez got 45 years in prison after prosecutors showed how, in exchange for cash and election help from drug cartels, he protected the drug traffickers from police. Even steered government contracts, their shell companies, so they could launder their drug money. The U.S. says the whole operation trafficked more than, quote, 500,000 kilograms of United States-bound cocaine. That's over 550 tons. He was also convicted of conspiring to use and carry machine guns and destructive devices during the cocaine importation conspiracy. And yet, he walked out of a West Virginia prison on Tuesday, thanks to Donald Trump. Even Republicans in Congress are pretty worked up about this. How did this convicted drug dealer end up on Donald Trump's radar? Well, according to a new report from the Wall Street Journal, it was put there by insiders, including Roger Stone, who famously got his own Trump pardon after 7 felony convictions for lying in the Russia probe, and former Congressman Matt Gaetz, who also reportedly sought a pardon from Trump when he was being investigated by the FBI for alleged sex trafficking of an underage girl. The New York Times subsequently reporting the sex work she was doing was so that she could save money for braces. Gaetz denies any wrongdoing, though a health ethics report found, quote, substantial evidence he used cocaine, ecstasy, and marijuana and engaged in sexual activity with a 17-year-old girl. But both Gaetz and Stone say they got no compensation to lobby for Hernandez's pardon. It was just a good deed. On Tuesday, a former DEA agent who worked on the case told the Washington Post Hernandez's release was devastating. He said, quote, "It means any attempt to work your investigations to the highest levels is meaningless." Liz Oyer served as the pardon attorney in Trump's Department of Justice until she was fired in March this year after she refused to, and I'm not making this up, reinstate actor Mel Gibson's gun rights. David Rode is a national security reporter for MS Now, and they join me now. Liz, I guess I'll start with you as someone who worked as a pardon attorney at DOJ. Did you ever, in your time there, have you ever seen a pardon of this magnitude of someone convicted of something so enormous and so sort of obviously politically toxic ever?
Absolutely not, Chris. I mean, this is a pardon that on its face should not have been granted. It's a case that is not appropriate for a pardon under any one of the many criteria that the Justice Department has in place for considering pardons. Just the scope of the crime in and of itself would be disqualifying under literally any other presidential administration. But take that together with the fact that this person was just sentenced a year ago, has served almost none of his sentence, was the president of a foreign country. It's just so inappropriate for clemency on so many different levels that it is really quite shocking.
I want to play for you, David, what Chris Coons said about this pardon. Take a listen.
If President Trump can pardon a convicted narco-terrorist trafficker, how does this campaign where we are targeting and killing folks on the open ocean to prevent their trafficking of drugs anywhere, how is that legitimate?
There's got to be a lot of Republicans on Capitol Hill saying the same thing, right?
Yes. I just met with a staffer for one, and they said this is what's so infuriating to them is that this broad policy just doesn't make, whether it's the pardon, but also the attacks in the Caribbean, which is on cocaine that's actually headed towards Europe.
Right.
Yet you're pardoning the president of Honduras, who allowed 500 tons of cocaine bound for the United States. The fentanyl comes in through Mexico. So they almost said the policy was what's so frustrating. And some of them have gone public. There was just a National Review story that had Tom Tillis saying that this is maddening, just talked about how terrible the optics of this Pardon was Susan Collins as well. And there's several others who were Senator Kennedy also. So earlier, Representative Smith was talking about, there is a sliver of a chance that some Republicans might want to bring some oversight regarding these boat strikes and this entire policy. And so there's that critical mass. They sort of see themselves as Reagan traditionalists in a national security sense.
I mean, it's one thing if he took a little time between these two stories. I mean, it still wouldn't be justified, but it's a wild thing to do in the middle of it when just from one day to the next, he's saying things literally like, every 100 pounds of cocaine we stop, we save 22,000 lives, right? So it's like, wait, so then this guy's responsible for hundreds of thousands of lives and you're pardoning him?
And it's a political thing, too, going back to the boat strikes. Like, we're going to kill these two people that are hanging on to wreckage because the president has unilaterally declared them to be enemy combatants and declared that these narco traffickers are waging war in the United States. And that's sort of a stretch in and of itself. But then we have to kill these two people. Like, it's so merciless on one side.
Right.
And then on the other side,
boundlessly merciful.
Just
depthlessly merciful.
If it was a Biden administration prosecution, it should be reversed.
Well, okay.
And I think voters, that dissonance, we'll see people notice it.
You mentioned that this was a Biden administration prosecution, which it was. But Liz, I think the craziest pardon we've yet encountered in some ways is the developer and former president, I think, of the Denver Nuggets, who was basically convicted of rigging a bid for a new venue at Texas. So this University of Texas venue means the Texas taxpayers pay for it. There's going to be two bidders. He goes to the other bidder and says, hey, drop out and I'll cut you in on the subcontracts. This is what he's alleged to have done because he did not actually face trial over it. And then he submits the single bid, he gets a big chunk of money, and then he runs off and doesn't get money to the subcontractors. This guy's indicted by the Trump Department of Justice in July. It wasn't a Biden witch hunt. It's his own DOJ who put out press releases bragging about this prosecution in July.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, what is so stunning about these pardons is the lengths to which the president is going to normalize corruption. All of these pardons have a common theme in that they involve individuals who have committed acts of corruption, and often by government leaders at the highest levels. The pardon of Juan Orlando Hernandez, he's the leader of a foreign country, and Trump, I believe, sees something of himself in that man that made him grant this pardon. This developer, again, corrupting a bidding process that is supposed to be fair and open. The way in which pardons are being handed out is corrupt in and of itself because it is based on patronage. It's based on money and power and connections, not on merit, not on the traditional set of merit-based criteria that the Justice Department applies. And then they're being doled out to people who commit acts of corruption, including 11 elected officials to date have received presidential pardons just this year on both sides of the aisle. So Donald Trump is going to great lengths to use the pardon power to essentially install a patronage system of government and normalize public corruption at every level.